For this video, we're going to be talking about the current Philippines travel restrictions. And essentially, this is just going to be an update for what's going on right now. I will continue to be doing these updates as new information changes. Today is Friday, October 30th, 2020, and the changes I'm about to discuss go into effect on November 1st, 2020, so just here in a few days. Up until today, essentially all inbound travel was limited to just a few select people. All tourism inbound is completely prohibited. You're not going to be able to just get on a plane and come here as a tourist. No tourist visas are being granted by the country, things like that. So if you're wanting to come over here, travel, do your scouting trip, take a look around, try and move over here, that ain't happening if you're coming on a tourist visa. Essentially the people that have been allowed to enter the country first, you must obtain a visa before you enter the country. That means either you must have an existing valid visa, or you have to go to like an embassy or consulate in order to obtain one before you're even allowed to board a flight coming into the country. If you're a Filipino citizen, you're allowed in. If you are the spouse or dependent of a Filipino citizen living in the Philippines, you are allowed to get one of those visas to come in. If you are, and this is fairly recent, if you are the parent of a Filipino child, you are allowed in. And again, that's a Filipino child that's living here in the Philippines. If you're coming on some type of a special diplomatic mission, you've got one of those diplomatic visas, you've been allowed in. And if you're a permanent resident, so you are already married to somebody here in the Philippines and you've got that permanent resident visa, there's a good selection of different visas that they were allowing in. But as far as like tourism, no. Lately, they have been allowing parents, so even if you're not married to a Filipina here, but you have a child with your girlfriend here, you are now allowed to enter the country. You can obtain a visa to come into the country. The latest information, there was a lot of this going out in the news. A lot of people started getting really excited because essentially all the headlines are saying foreigner travel restrictions lifted. Foreigners now allowed into the Philippines. And a lot of people are like, oh, so it's over, we can go back in now. No, you've got to read the fine print. Don't just read the headlines, you got to actually read the articles. And a lot of these articles, they are not giving the information. What they've done is they are now allowing one type of visa, resident visa, to come back into the country. This is the special investors retirees visa. There's a big list of, your requirements. Basically anybody that's investing like $75,000 US into the country, you're able to get one of these investor visas. Not many people are going to be doing that. One thing I will say is that some of these discussions, it's going to get political just due to the nature of everything that's going on right now. This is going to be a political discussion as it relates to foreigners trying to travel or retire here in the Philippines. Normally I don't do I don't like to talk about politics and stuff on the channel publicly, but this is one of those circumstances where it's got to be done. So essentially what's going to happen is, think about it. Right now, COVID, lockdowns, businesses are closing down left and right. People are out of money. There are only going to be a few people out there that are willing to come here and invest that kind of money. The majority of them are going to be Chinese. Let's just put it out there, okay? And I'll be talking about something else pretty soon that this has been causing a major problem. But if you are going to be getting one of these investors visas, then yeah, you're going to be allowed into the country. On the screen, I've been putting up different images showing the IATF. It's the Interagency Task Force. They're the one in charge of making all of these rules. And you can see that they are basically putting certain visa types and everything on that approved list. What the country has also done lately is they are lifting regulations allowing Filipinos to travel as tourists to other countries. And to even go one step further, you aren't required to get a COVID test before you leave the country. If you're a Filipino wanting to travel somewhere as a tourist, as long as that country will allow you to fly in there, you don't have to get a test to board an aircraft. If your country of destination requires it before you depart, then you'll still have to pay for a test before you leave. But a lot of these places, they just test you when you arrive. That way, their government gets the money for doing the testing. And one other thing on the side is all these people that are getting so-called tested and then you're all packed onto an airplane. Some countries don't trust the testing enough that if you're packed on a plane where you could possibly get it after you were tested, they would just, for safety reasons, they would rather test you when you arrive. But I think a big part of it is they want to get the money from testing you themselves. But anyways, so now Filipinos are allowed to go out as tourists. And again, this is only going to be the rich people, because right now, anywhere in the world, you're going to be very limited on travel options if you're looking for a budget. Flights are going to be expensive. You're going to have to pay for all these different medical testing, quarantine facilities. I mean, just almost anywhere you go out there, there's going to be a lot of restrictions. And there's not a whole lot of countries open right now for tourism that you would really consider being a tourist-worthy location, unless you've got a lot of money. So the next thing that we go into is there is a certain type of resident visa here in the Philippines that a lot of foreigners get, and that is the SRRV, Special Retirees Resident Visa. So if you are, and this is intended for those that are retirees, older foreigners that they're retiring. They're no longer working. They're using their retirement funds to move over here. There are a lot of different classifications for what type of category you fit in for this type of visa, but generally it's over the age of 50 years old, and you're going to be investing 10 or 20,000 US dollars either into a bank or into some kind of property investment. And essentially what that does is gives you a resident visa. You don't have to pay every time you leave the country, enter the country. It's just a free-for-all resident visa. Part of the problem with that is there's a certain category that is eligible to get this retiree's visa between the ages of 35 and 49. You do pay a bit more for your investment, but they do allow it. And pretty much what they were finding out, the government was alarmed about this. Some of the congressmen and senators were freaking out because they see that 28,000 Chinese nationals are in the country on one of these retiree visas. A large majority of them are of the age between 35 and 49. Some of the senators are like, that's military soldier age. How is it that these people at that age are retiring? They're of working age. Now here in the Philippines, they have what are called POGOs. It's a P-O-G-O. Basically, it's online gambling. It's a casino where it's all digitized. So they have people that work in the casinos. You got your slots, blackjack. I don't know what all is there, but they've got the cameras recorded. People living overseas, like in China, where casinos would be illegal, they can go online and gamble at these online casinos, get their gambling fix on. So since those type of environments, the casinos are illegal in mainland China, they have them over here in the Philippines where it's legal, and they just do it online. And essentially you get a lot of Chinese nationals that are working in these. And these casinos are constantly getting raided. They're finding that Chinese nationals are coming into the country on some type of a tourist visa or something else, and then illegally working inside of these casinos. It's been a major problem. And essentially what they're saying is they know that a large majority of these people that are coming over here on the SRRV from China are probably doing so to work in these casinos. They're not here to actually retire. So because of that, the alarming concern from the senators, they basically put all SRRV applications on hold indefinitely, and they are probably going to be repealing the ability to apply for this visa program if you're under the age of 50 years old. Nothing's been finalized yet. This is just the current news that's out there. It's going to be a lot of discussions and things going on. For people that are already here that have their visas, it's a question of, are they just going to basically get rid of it completely unless you meet a certain age requirement? The other concern they have is, out of all these people here on these retiree visas, they don't really feel that they're doing their job to check on these people to make sure they aren't actually working. And that's their concern. It's, you can't monitor this many people. So they really are going to be doing some serious revisions of this visa class. We don't know what's going to happen to existing people that have these visas when it's time to renew. If you have an application in, is your application just going to basically be shredded and you got to wait? We don't know yet. But if the SRRV program is something that you are already looking into and considering, right now that's no longer an option, because as of now it is suspended. Don't know if it's going to just go away or if it's going to be just revised. There is no news, but the essential news right now is that program is on hold, mostly because of these Chinese nationals that have been taking advantage of the system, probably doing illegal activities. Other than that, the travel restrictions right now are probably going to be remaining in place for quite a while. They are still slowly opening more and more of these different travel bubbles. They are lifting certain restrictions. So what they're saying is, now you don't need a travel pass, quarantine pass, or any of these types of medical clearance paperwork if you're traveling between different provinces, different areas that are under less restrictive quarantine measures. You don't need all this strict paperwork just to show that you're traveling. They're allowing people to travel for leisure. So if you want to travel to another province, go to a mall, go to somewhere else, in some of these places that's allowed. If you want to hit up certain locations, they're slowly allowing more and more of that. We're seeing more areas around here for tourists open. One of the last updates that I read, but I can't find the article anymore, basically says that a lot of the hotels that have been closed, they're slowly allowing these hotels to reopen at full capacity, not just limited capacity. We have not seen news as far as resorts. So like say a beach resort or something where you can go, get a room, you can stay for the day just to go out and hit the beach. We're not seeing if many of these resorts are opening up, but the actual hotels themselves, more and more are slowly being allowed to reopen and reopen at full capacity. More restaurants are allowed to open. Of course, dine-in has a lot of restrictions and annoyances, but we're seeing slowly things domestically are beginning to reopen and improve. We can't take this completely as it is, because when they started to do this before, they started slowly opening things up, and then a few days or a week later, boom, they fucking locked everything down tight. So it could happen again. As they're slowly reopening things, if they start to see case numbers rise and all that kind of stuff or whatever, they might decide, oh, no, and just lock everything down again. It's this constant roller coaster cycle of freedom, lockdown, and it's just nuts. But it's looking like right now, middle of next year, like the middle of 2021, there's a good chance that by then, as long as things are going smoothly like they are now, they will slowly begin to allow tourism. My opinion is what they're going to basically require is, in order for you to come here as a tourist, they're probably going to have you do a COVID test in your country of, your country of origin, or I take that back. They're going to have you do a COVID test when you get here, because obviously you're taking that test right here at the airport. They're making money off of it. These tests can be fairly expensive. We're seeing OFWs are paying up to 20,000 peso, like $400 for some of their tests to be able to travel overseas and get work outside the country. So they're really screwing over a lot of those OFWs that are trying to get those, but they're going to have you test when you get here. That way they make their money off it. But essentially what they're probably going to have you do is you're going to have to go to a consulate or an embassy or something, apply for your visa before you come into the country. That way they can kind of limit how many people are granted access and able to come in. And they'll probably do that for a few months, and then slowly things by the end of 2021 might start going back to normal. It just depends on the global situation, vaccines, blah, blah, blah. So right now you can look pretty much to say that there's no chance in hell of the Philippines reopening for tourism until at least late 2021. I mean, that's just my opinions, everybody else's opinions, government's opinions. The Department of Tourism even stated that they won't be allowing tourism to reopen until the second half of 2021. And when it does reopen at that time, it's only going to be to select countries within Southeast Asia that have shown a low case count. So places like Thailand. If you're coming from a country that has a higher than normal case count, you ain't going to get in that soon. So we're just going to have to wait and see. If some miracle a vaccine does come out and the vaccine proves effective, the amount of time it would take to vaccinate people and to slowly get the numbers down to the point where the countries are like, okay, we feel safe enough to open, probably the same thing. Probably won't be happening until at least the second half of 2021. It's not going to be something that happens within a week. We're talking 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. So that's pretty much the breakdown of what's going on. I'm going to be posting links in the description of some of these articles regarding different restrictions and the SRRV program being halted, so you can go look at those articles. And my best recommendation is constantly be keeping track of update videos and seeing where things are going. And before you buy your tickets, check immigration, check the ITF, check all the government agencies that are here to make sure you're going to be allowed in, that you're not going to have any issues when you get here. Obviously, your airlines aren't even going to allow you onto a plane until you meet the country's requirements for entry. So just do your homework and be patient. Hopefully this has been useful information, and I'll go ahead and update the next time I get a chance.